Good morning, happy Monday, and welcome to Coffee Talk Live. In this episode, we are going to talk about why cardio, long, steady state cardio, is great for your health, but terrible for fat loss. I'm your host, Connie Pastorius, online coach and the founder of Pastorius Fitness, which is online coaching for busy moms who are ready to get stronger, gain energy, and reclaim their health. I'm also the woman in charge here in the Strong as a Mother, Happy and Healthy Living Facebook group, which is the village for moms to feel heard and supported so they can live happy and healthy lives while raising happy and healthy babies. If you're watching, drop a good morning or a 1 in the comments. And if you're catching the replay, you can still drop a good morning or good afternoon or a 2 if you are watching later in the day. But either way, I want to hear your voice, your thoughts on these topics. So if you've ever heard or thought or still think that you need to do hours of cardio, let us know where you've heard this from, where you got this belief, if you've tried it, if it's been challenging for you. And if you have questions, we'll do our best to answer it in real time. So let's get to today's guest. He is a fellow online coach hanging out with us all the way from Sweden, and he's also an endurance athlete himself. Please welcome to the show this morning, Anders Carbonier. Good morning, Anders.
Good morning or good afternoon,
Good day.
as we are in a different part of the world.
Yeah, it's so good to see you on this show.
I'm really happy to be here. We've been knowing each other for a while, and it's good to finally be here and be a part of the coffee talk.
I knew, yes. So for anybody who doesn't know, Anders and I sort of became accountability buddies as online coaches, and we just catch up and keep each other on track every week as best as we can. And, you know, practicing what we preach and having somebody to just be there for us to keep our stuff together. And Anders, I wanted to tell you that by some miracle, there is a Swedish festival in my lake house town in like 2 weeks, and I'm actually going to be here for it. How bizarre is that?
Great stuff.
I have no idea what it's gonna be like. I'm probably going to video chat you and be like, "What am I eating? What is this word?" Because I have no idea how to talk and speak in Spanish or Swedish. Clearly, I have not finished all of my coffee. And speaking of coffee, what's in the cup today?
My cup, I did some foaming of some oat milk and added in some decaf coffee.
Because it's the afternoon over there.
Because it's 4 o'clock or 4 p.m. and I enjoy my deep quality sleep.
We've talked a lot about that because we're both parents and sleep is as precious as gold and diamonds.
Yes.
So oat milk, that's really interesting. Do you prefer non-dairy stuff in your coffee, or is that just what you had available today?
I do prefer it or at the moment I do. We found, my wife's been a vegan for a couple of years, so we did find a barista style oat milk that's really nice with the coffee. So we just been sticking to that, and it just outtastes regular milk. But I'm not cutting dairy out of my diet or anything like that. I don't drink that much milk, but I eat dairy products.
Same.
So it's just a taste preference at the moment.
Same. And a lot of people know that I've just been diagnosed with arthritis in my neck at a very peculiarly young age, but I've been working on like an anti-inflammatory diet and lifestyle, and I've kind of like landed on the Mediterranean type diet. And diet's obviously a very loose word, because if you've ever talked with me for 5 minutes, you know that I hate the word diet. But anyways, dairy is still allowed. Again, a bad word to use for it, but being able to find like an eating lifestyle that helps reduce inflammation and allows me to still put like cream in my coffee is something that I'm really happy about. But this isn't a talk show on dairy and the Mediterranean diet, so we'll save that for another one. So we're talking here as trainers. Let's get into this. I don't know about you, but I'm still having conversations with moms who are talking about what they've been trying to do to lose weight, and they would say literally the sentence, I know I should be doing more cardio, or I should just be running more to lose fat, but I'm not. And I'm wondering, I want to know why this is still a thing. And is this something that you still hear too as a trainer?
Yeah, it's probably one of the most common things that people bring up when I need to lose weight. And most of the time when talking about losing weight, you're talking about fat loss, because losing weight is not an aim in itself. You want to get rid of your excess body fat, not the rest of it. But yeah, it's a common thing to think that you need more cardio to burn more calories and lose weight.
Agree. That's and we're gonna explore more why that's so not true, and including people who have I'm running the marathon. I'm training for the marathon right now. I'm not a lifelong runner. I started 10 years ago from zero, and I started at a 5K, went up to a 10K, went to a half marathon, like the usual trajectory. But when somebody says like, I'm going to train for a 5K so I lose weight, they might find that they lose a little bit in the beginning just because they're moving more, but eventually and very quickly they realize that it's not the best solution to just run and run and run. So what are your thoughts, or where do you think that this is coming from?
I don't know. It probably comes from the term. We all know that calories in, calories out matters, and matters the most above everything else when it comes to regulating your weight. And running or spending more time doing some sort of cardio clearly makes you burn more calories, and that should change the equation so you lose weight. I think that's like a easy solution for people. If I move more,
yeah, like it's like the common sense. It obviously takes a lot of energy to run a very long time. Energy is calories. I'm just gonna go run until I look like all the runners in the magazines, right? But let's I also think, there's like I wanted to bring up the fat burn level on the treadmills that have been there since like before we were born. I have this treadmill that someone gave me for free that I like cleaned up, and I brought it back to life. And I Googled like, when was this damn thing made, because it is old, and it was made in like the early 80s, and there's still the fat burn line at the bottom next to a turtle, I think. And the cardio, I think it's like cardio is like the high one with a rabbit next to it.
Yeah.
And it seems like, okay, someone who's a beginner exercising hops on the treadmill, sees that there's a button for fat burn, and they're like, yeah, that's what I want to do. And then they hit that button, and they're just kind of maybe walking briskly.
Yeah.
But so let's talk about what happens. Let's talk about that and what's happening, why it's sort of true and why it's sort of not true.
Yeah, as we when we move, we have or actually we have three sources of energy where we can withdraw or get energy to move from. So we have stored energy, we have in fat, we have a huge amount of stored fat, even if we are skinny. And so we can use fat we can do fat oxidation to get moving, or we can use stored carbohydrates to move, or if you're going explosively, or every time we start moving, we have the anaerobic, what's it called, thing that makes us moving, and that's from creatine phosphates, but that's a bit sciencey and nerdy stuff. So actually, when we're out walking, we do get most of our energy, and the moving gets its energy from stored fat. And if we go a bit faster, or we go above our anaerobic threshold, we start to use more stored carbohydrates to get moving. So it's true that, yes, if we go like low intensity, long steady distance at a really slow pace, as you said, maybe walking briskly, but then we use most of that energy from our fat stores. But the thing is that our body is smart enough, so as soon as we step off the treadmill after doing our light intensity training, we replenish those fat stores again. So it's not a good idea, and it costs a huge amount of time to actually have a true fat loss result from that.
Right. So rewinding for a second and explaining a little bit better, there's different ways that we can create energy in our bodies. And they're all from the storage of our fat, our carbohydrates, and our protein, the muscles, and muscles. And the easiest way to get that energy, it's from the carbohydrates, the sugar that's literally flowing through our blood at any given moment, correct?
Yes.
But that's a very small, that's like sprinting to the bus or sprinting to catch the train. It's a very small amount of sugar, carbohydrates that's in the body. And then depending on what kind of exercise, how intense you're doing the exercise, your body's either like, oh, let's break down this fat, or let's utilize the carbohydrates that we've stored. So it costs more. There's an energy cost, right, to break down fat versus using carbohydrates for energy. And like you said, the body's smart, so it goes for whatever's easiest. And whenever we're going at a slow pace, casual, you don't need to run fast. You don't have to actually exert a lot of energy. Your body's like, all right, cool, we can use this fat because it's not going to wipe us out. We're not going to get super tired. But then you say, once you stop utilizing that fat storage, your body's like, oh, we ran out of that, let's go put some back in. And it's super inefficient. I've used the comparison, or just the generalization, that like you burn approximately 100 calories a mile, whether you're running or you're walking. It's flexible, but just saying roughly that. So if we think about, we're burning fat walking a mile, it's still going to take us forever, and nobody has time to just walk. No one's Forrest Gump. Nobody, like, we got kids, we got lives, we got stuff to do. But on the flip side of that, and this is where it gets frustrating, right? Because you think that you would just lose the weight if you're taking more HIIT classes or taking more spinning classes, right? A lot of people are spinning now with their Pelotons and their bikes and stuff, but they're not losing the weight. And what's happening is they're getting just better at storing carbohydrates to utilize. Is that correct?
Partly. You get more efficient. Yeah, I like the thing you said about the 100 calories to go a mile. I use the term kilometers because that's what we do here, and it's about 70 calories per kilometer. So, but it's easier to count on 100 calories per mile, and it actually doesn't matter if you do like a 4-minute mile or a 20-minute mile. It still costs you 100 calories to go that distance. So yeah, and when you starting to do more walking or light running or spinning or HIIT classes, your body will learn to do those types of activities. So if you start spinning like 2 times, 3 times a week, you will get better at spinning. So it will actually cost you less energy to do that class because your body gets more efficient at spinning. And then it's more energy efficient and it doesn't cost you as much because you won't go as high up in your with your heartbeat won't be as high in the 10th session as in the first. If you can push yourself hard enough during the first session without dying. So if it's like running a 5K will take you some, say, 40 minutes, 30 minutes the first time you do it. And then 10 weeks later, when you still run your 5K in 30 minutes, you won't go as high up. You probably won't pass your aerobic threshold. So you won't just be more, your running economics will be much better. So it will give us get efficient. You won't use as much of your stored fat to do that anymore.
And that's the point.
Sorry.
Right? That's the goal, because the first time you take a spin class, like you feel like crap. You feel like you got your butt kicked because that was a really hard class. I don't love spinning. I like leisurely bike rides. So that's a cardio that I personally avoid. But you don't want to feel that way by your 10th spin session. No. So yeah, that's what we call like the economics of exercise. You're getting better. Your body's like, oh, this is a thing you're doing now. Let me change some stuff around. So you're burning. Your body will adapt. Which it's the goal, but just because we're thinking I want to burn fat by doing these exercises, your body's not like, all right, let me see how I can do that, right? We have to understand a little bit better what's going on so that we can maximize the fat loss if that's our goal, and not just keep hoping and praying that one day we're going to magically lose all the weight that we want to by doing the same exact thing. So what can we start doing? How do we start changing this belief into a new one that actually makes sense if we're trying to integrate more cardiovascular activity, but we're also trying to lose weight, lose fat, burn fat? Let's be very specific. We're trying to burn fat. Yeah. But we don't have the time, and doing cardio for hours on end is not the right way to do it. So what can we do instead? Yes, because when you do like low intensity cardio, it's true, you will burn fat doing that activity, but that will replenish and be restored as soon as you finish. But if you do something more like a high intensity training, you will use more carbohydrates during the activity, but then you will utilize something called the afterburn. Because when you've been training really, really hard, you will still spend energy afterwards to recover and replenish those stored carbohydrates instead of the stored fat. So it will cost you more energy a long time after you finish your exercise, and that energy will be taken from your fat stores primarily. Really? Yeah. I'm saying this as just like as the interested person as well. Like you're the endurance coach. I'm the general fitness person, and I know a lot about this, but understanding really the physiology of what the hell your body's doing is a
Yeah.
really complicated thing. So you're saying instead of doing the slow fat burning
Steady state. Yeah.
steady state where afterwards your body's going to just replenish the fat, you
Yeah.
doing the higher intensity exercises is going to require your body to replenish the carbohydrates, but after you're done with the workout, minutes, hours later,
Yeah.
it's utilizing the fat.
Yeah. And that's because if you're going high intensity and you're going really hard, your heart is beating really strong in your chest, you're panting for air, and you really almost can't breathe fast enough to get enough oxygen into your body to keep moving. That will create oxygen depth. So you owe your body more oxygen when you finished. That's if you do like a rowing interval or something, you will feel that when you go for like 1 minute or 30 seconds as hard as you can, when you finish, you will just be gasping for air and be more or less knocked out. And that's the depth of energy or oxygen. So you need to get more oxygen into your system to get it all back to baseline again. And if you've done a longer high intensity session, that can stay, your afterburn can be still increased. It can be increased, or you can have a higher energy demand for up to 24 hours afterwards. So if you go really hard for say half an hour, 45 minutes, 1 hour at the tops, you will burn more energy for the rest of the day by sitting on your couch as well.
Or sitting at our desks, which a lot of us do now.
Yeah.
Even as trainers.
Yeah.
Okay, so can you explain like how can people tell what constitutes low intensity versus high intensity?
Low intensity is where you can talk to someone. You can keep a normal conversation without pausing for breathers in a while. High intensity is where you can probably say 1 or 2 words, maybe a short sentence, but not keep like a normal conversation. So what we talk about here, we can still do doing low intensity cardio. Mm-hmm. But if we were on a treadmill doing this and going into the higher intensity, we wouldn't be able to keep talking. So that can be a good measurement. Or if you listen to music and go running by yourself, if you can sing along, then you're probably still quite close to the low intensity. If you have hard times singing along, then you're in more high intensity activities.
That's a really good way
to... Or intensities, yeah.
Yeah, explain it without having to be like... Because there's RPEs, people might have seen these on walls at the gym, where you base your like how you're feeling from a scale of 6 to 20 or a scale of 1 to 10. And if you're not really in tune with like what like an 18 feels like or what a 14 feels like, that's a really great way to just be like, okay, I'm still having this conversation with the person next to me when I should be paying attention. Maybe I should turn it up a notch or just shut up. But there's also a point past, right? Where like past high intensity, where if you can't even get like one word out.
Yeah.
That's too high.
That's the anaerobic phase. And that's where if you go really deep into that part of your intensity, you will sooner or later stop moving because your body just shuts down.
Right. And
so don't go there.
Don't go there. So that's so to explain, and I love educate. I love teaching people like anatomy stuff. So when we're talking about anaerobic, we're talking about the body is no longer utilizing oxygen, the air that you're breathing, to generate energy. Right. So now,
and that
anaerobic. Go ahead.
And that happens when, say, if you're running, and you can run below your aerobic threshold. Aerobic is where you use oxygen. Anaerobic is when you can't use oxygen, or because when you pass the aerobic threshold, you will leave the low intensity and go into like a mid-intensity training, where probably most people do their endurance training, but they shouldn't. And then when we pass the point where we can't get enough oxygen in to supply the demand that our muscles are required to do, we can't supply the work doing. That's when we are in the anaerobic zone and our lactate threshold is passed. So we will build up on lactate in our muscles and in our blood, which will make our body aching. It will be hurtful. Yeah, it will be painful, and you will feel it. You will feel the burn, and that will force you to stop eventually. Yeah. And if you're a trained endurance athlete, you will be able to stay at your lactate threshold or your anaerobic threshold for about or maximum 1 hour, and then you will totally collapse. So it's quite a long time, but if you're an endurance athlete, you do things for quite a long time, like running marathons for 3, 4, 5 hours.
Right. So you're going into a lot of really interesting things that we could like go off on and explain. And I think one thing that could be really helpful to explain a little bit more is all of us who have these fancy heart rate watches, right? And you're doing exercises, and there's zones that's in blue, green, orange, and red. Let's talk for a minute. Do you want to talk for a minute about what those zones basically are saying, and why, like when you should avoid getting into certain zones?
Yeah, so the zones are like 1 to 5. We have like, I think Garmin at least has a gray zone for like no training, or it's below. It's not even, it's like walking, recovery really. And then you have zone 2, that is your low intensity zone. And then you have a aerobic, anaerobic, and a maximum heart rate. And the preset of those are like 60, 70, 80, 90% of your maximum heart rate. So when you get your watch, you set your age, you set your weight, you set sex and things like that. And it estimates your heart rate probably by counting 226 minus your age. And that will be the preset of your maximum heart rate. But we know that that number is probably not correct for like 8 out of 10 people.
Wow.
So to get better estimates, you need to test out your maximum heart rate, or go to a fancy lab and test your thresholds. But that can be a bit, that's what I do for a living. But that can be a bit tricky if you just want to run a little. But yeah, so for low intensity training, you should be in zone 2. And then if you really want to improve your capacity, you should try to train more in zone 4, and then maybe do, if you want to increase your maximum oxygen uptake, you need to spend time in the red zone, in the zone 5.
But not for like a really long time.
You can't be there for a very long time.
No. I'm just making sure this is clear for everybody. Like, don't go to the gym and just like aim for the red zone for an hour.
No, doing things like the famous Norwegian intervals, like 4 times 4 minutes, with 3 minutes rest. That's a good estimate to stay in the red zone if you can push it that hard for that long. But in zone 4, you can stay a bit longer. I tend to do like 8-minute intervals in that zone with a couple of minutes rest and do about 4 to 6 repetitions. But then I always try to avoid, like, I think zone 3 is green. So avoid the green zone and stay in the blue, red, or orange zones.
So the green
zone
zone is
2,
just the aerobic zone. What would you say that one is?
you don't get much out of it when it comes to endurance training. Because it will cost more for you to be there than the benefits. You will have more benefits in the zone 2 for endurance, and you will have a lot more benefits in zone 4 and 5. Zone 3 is where you get the aches and pain. You don't really go fast, and you don't really go slow. So it's just a like in between thingy where you don't get any bang for the buck. In that zone. And unfortunately, most people who take up some sort of endurance training do like 95% of the training sessions in zone 3. So instead, avoid that. Go easy or go hard.
So this is really, it's interesting and it's aggravating, right? Because we get these smartwatches and we hope that they're telling us the right thing and what we should be doing. And green is classically good. Green is go.
Yeah.
Green is like the thing, the safe place. Red is bad. Like, and so and then it says aerobic. It literally says like aerobic. So the common person, the average person just sees aerobic and they're like, oh yeah, that's what I want to be doing. But now you're also saying that 8 out of 10 people, like for a lot of people, the preset zones just based on your age isn't necessarily right.
Unfortunately not.
We can't get a break. So would you say then it's...
You want to know something else?
Do I, though?
Yeah, you know that these watches and the treadmills tell you, or your elliptical or whatever you do, tell you how many calories you burned.
Don't say it, Anders.
No, okay.
I'm just
and
kidding.
the watches tell you. And unfortunately, those estimates are about 30 to 50% off target. So don't take those. If your watch or your treadmill say you have burned X amount of calories, don't take that into account into diet or how you eat. Mm-hmm. That's bad. Also, more cardio will also make your body and your brain make you eat more. And you will spend less energy for the rest of the day if you do if you deliberately move more, your body will make you be still more when you're not forcing it to move.
Because it needs a break and it has to rest.
Yeah.
We can't end on these discouraging revelations. Because everybody's going to throw their Garmin and their Fitbit into the garbage.
No, don't do that.
So let's talk. Let's give some advice. Let's tell these moms listening what the hell they should be doing instead. So I want to make it clear and very, very crystal clear that cardiovascular exercise is excellent for your health, and everybody should be doing it. And if it's between doing something and nothing, doing something is great. So
always
considering that we don't want to be micromanaging our calorie intake from our watches or our treadmills because they're not accurate, and we don't want to be focusing on fat loss with long amounts of exercise, of cardiovascular exercise. WTF? What can we actually do during the week in short periods of time that is actually beneficial, that we know is going to give us the results that we want?
Yeah, for like low intensity, you want to get moving at least, of course, both for your mental health as for your physical health. So you want to move every day to feel good, like get 30 minutes of walking in every day. And when you are doing some sort of cardio to increase your capacity, your endurance capacities, you want to go for about 45 minutes, and you want to make it a bit more intense. But as for anyone who sets out to haven't been running for ages or not runner, start slow, and I guarantee that less is more in the beginning. So just get out moving. And there's actually, in running, there's a Swedish word who has breaking through into the running world. It's called fartlek, or speed play, where you can walk, you can jog, you can run, you can rush, you can sprint, you can stop. Just play along with speed. Go as fast as you can, and then walk if you have to, stop if you have to, jog a bit, run a bit, walk a bit. Just get going, get out there and just move about. Because when starting running, you will probably be quite inefficient at running, because you haven't been building up your running economics yet. So you will be a bad runner, and that will cost you more energy and it put you higher up into intensity. And as you get better, you can still use the fartlek, but you just go faster for longer. You do more high intensity things. So try to build up so you can do more high intensity during your cardio sessions to get more of a bang for your buck. So the investment of time will have a better payoff.
That's great advice. And the one easiest thing that popped into my head to integrate fartlek training is play with your kids, right?
Yeah.
Like I know a lot of moms who come to me and say, like, I just want to be the mom at the park actually running around with her kids instead of the one sitting on the bench just watching. And I think that's a really profound realization and a really simple goal that they all deserve to achieve. And like you said, the first time you run around with your kids, it's gonna suck. And if you're not used to it, right? Because those things are they're little energizer bunnies, they just keep going. But as you keep showing up and keep doing those like little bursts of activities throughout the day regularly, you get better, you get more efficient, and then your body's like, oh cool, so we're going to start doing this more often. Let's make sure we're at the best the most optimal weight, right? And your body's so smart if you just get out of the way and let it do its job. So I love that we had this conversation. Alina asked while we were talking in the talk show how often we should be changing up our cardio routine. So what would you say to that? Because I feel like it's a little dependent on what it is that you're doing, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah, of course it's really dependent on what you're doing, and you should do what you enjoy doing. I used to run marathons, and my training regime was quite the same. Long runs on the weekends, then some interval sessions on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then easy runs in between. I really never changed that up. Instead, only for putting in more rest. But if you just want to do like cardio for your actual well-being and your mental and physical health, change it around, do whatever you feel for. You don't really need to change it that much. Just implement things you're bad at but enjoy. That will make it more challenging.
That's really,
And of course,
go ahead.
yeah, and if you like start running and you run 2, 3, 4, 5 times a week, you maybe should go longer distance one time, do shorter distances, do easy runs most of the time, and then add some fartlek or interval sessions in between. So the main part of your cardio or endurance training is from lower intensity, but that's not a fat loss goal in mind.
Right.
If that's the case. And if fat loss is the goal, do something you're bad at, because that will cost more energy. And when you get efficient at that, change to something else.
I feel exactly that way about burpees. I hate burpees because I am bad at them. And like whenever I feel like there's almost no functional purpose to train to do burpees. But whenever you do things like that, actually they're really helpful for surfing. But you do stuff that you suck at, and that's where you start. The idea that you do stuff like change it up by making sure that you still love doing it is like the coolest piece of advice, because I'm totally in the same position as you with explaining that the best exercise, the best way to keep doing exercise and to stick with it and make it part of your life is to make it something that you enjoy doing. And in somewhere like New York City, if you're comfortable running outside, you can make the coolest running routes and adventures and never run the same route twice, because there's just so much cool stuff to experience by changing it up.
Yeah. And then you can start trying to, if you have like a smartwatch or a Garmin or with the GPS that can track you, or you can use Strava or another app for that. You can start doing like patterns and painting figures as you run. So you go around the blocks and just find your way and then see how it turns out. That can be fun. You can write your name or something in between around the neighborhood. But if when talking to moms, parents who wants to play with their kids, just a cardio session or a training session can be just get down to the floor, get up again, get down to the floor and get up again. And that will take you closer to being able to comfortably play with your kids. If you can easily get up, get down and get up from the floor, that will make it fun, more fun to play with the kids.
Yeah, this is usually a 30-minute talk, but I love so much of the stuff that we're bringing up that we're
sorry.
It's good. No. So get up, get down, get up again. This is a point where a lot of parents, moms get discouraged because they do it like once and they're like, oh my God, I can't do this. And then they quit. But what they don't realize is that they're actually starting to make progress if they just keep doing it and keep going. And what and what I know as coaches is people's abilities as they get older to get off the floor easily and stand up is a really we use that as an indicator of people's health. So it's a very functional skill and thing to work on. And you also mentioned that this is the last thing I'm going to bring up. You mentioned that if you're doing longer runs, to do them so gently and easily and don't push yourself throughout the week, because of the impact that running has on your joints can make it can make or break you, literally, because you can injure yourself if you go too hard for too long. And that's why I'm talking with you so much during this marathon training stuff, because you're the expert and I want to make sure that I don't break anything so I can actually get this done. So
sounds awesome.
Anders,
yes.
If people want to talk more with you about this, or if we have some Swedish moms that want to talk in Swedish to a coach, how can we get in touch with you? What's your Instagram, your website? Where do you hang out these days?
I'm off. No. You can find me at Coach Carbo on Instagram. and my name, Anders Carbonier, at Facebook. You probably put links in somewhere around this talk. Yeah. Facebook Messenger is probably the easiest. Just send a friend request and I'll be there for you. Or follow me on Instagram.
But Instagram's in Swedish, so you'll have to hit the translate button, right?
Yeah, for most of the time. Sometimes I do things in English as well. I do have a website that is coachcarbo.com. I think I translated that into English.
Awesome. Well, cheers to a really awesome coffee talk. I hope we didn't confuse too many people with our fancy language and technical terms. But really, if anybody has questions or wants clarification or wants to learn more, we clearly love talking about this nerdy stuff, and we're happy to share what we know. So thank you again, Anders, for hanging out with me today. And it was a total pleasure. You're obviously gonna hear from me more. You
Soon
really
enough.
You can't get rid of me.
No. Thanks for having me. Yes. It was fun.
So for everyone watching, I would love to hear your takeaways and your thoughts. If you, like I said, have more questions, put them in the comments, send Anders a message, send me a message. We would love to talk with you more about this subject. And if you're watching this replay on YouTube, be sure to subscribe so I know that you want more awesome content just like this. So until next time, stay strong, stay caffeinated, and I will see you in the group. Bye, everyone.